Okay, and now for the big event. I'm gonna start with a wee bio on Wayne Parker, my brother. He was born and grew up in Toronto, where he trained as a mechanical engineer. Following it, university, he began working at Caterpillar in 1977 as a manufacturing process planner, and during the 1980s, implemented a number of computer technologies to improve manufacturing facilities, including CNC machines, CAD/CAM workstations, a factory network, and computerized product testing. This was an exciting time as new, affordable computer technologies allowed for what had been a traditional smokestack industry to begin transitioning to automated and high tech. In 1991, he moved to Connaught Laboratories in North York as a project manager in the Information Systems Solutions Department, supporting infrastructure projects for key business initiatives. He worked on a diverse number of systems, technology projects supporting bioinformatics, research and development, pharmacovigilance, and regulatory affairs. There's a lot of big words in this. He had his first sailing experience in 1991 or 92, not sure, while on a Caribbean cruise, and had the opportunity to sail on an America's Cup sailboat, the Canada II. In 2008, he joined the club race committee as crew and began helping out on Wednesday night club racing, learning how to manage club racing. He completed Ontario Sailing's race officer, club judge courses, and also serves as Mimico's Perth representative. From 2015 to 2017, he served as Mimico's fleet captain in charge of club racing. In 2018, he served on the planning committee that organized and executed Sail Canada's Ladies Keelboat Championship event in September of that year. In 2022, the race to Kingston began with its inaugural year. Wayne was part of that team and has served on the R2K executive committee ever since. He continues to serve on Mimico's race committee executive, helping to organize and run Mimico's club racing program, which happens to be the best on the lake. No bias here. Please give Wayne a warm Shellback welcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out here today, both in person and the folks on Zoom. Can't hear me? Is that better? Is that better, Elizabeth? Thank you. Okay. So we're going to talk about organizing a long distance race. These things just don't happen on their own. That's pretty clear. So, but we're not the only ones that have done this. So what do we have to do here? Okay, you're right. Okay, all right. So we've got quite a few long distance races on the Great Lakes, actually, and quite a few even in the Lake Ontario and in the Toronto area. And of course, one of the earliest ones that we do every year, that is done every year, is the Susan Hood race. And this starts on a Friday night, goes all night long, and finishes sometime probably about midday on the Saturday. Starts over here at Port Credit, over to the Clarkson Mark, across to the mark at the Niagara River, down here to the Burlington Weather Mark, and then back home to Port Credit. It's a total of 77 nautical miles. And this year it's going to take place on May 31st. Other races, well, the famous Lake Ontario 300/600. That's going to take place in mid-July. And this one here is, again, starts at Port Credit, out to the Clarkson Mark, across to the Niagara River Mark, all the way around, over and up to Main Duck Island, around the island, down to the Ford Shoal Mark, and then back across the lake to Port Credit. And this one's about 300 miles. It's generally, most boats take upwards of 48 hours or a little more to complete it. And for those who didn't get enough out of the first lap, the 300 miles, they get to go around again and do another and call it the 600. Okay, at the same time, there's a shortened version during this race, referred to as the Lake Ontario Scotch Bonnet course. And this is a little more simplified course, again, starting at Port Credit, oops, to the Clarkson Mark, across to the Niagara River, and down here to Scotch Bonnet Island, around the island, and then back down to Port Credit. And that's 185 nautical miles again. So, okay, that's the ones that most people are probably familiar with here in this area. Now, there's other famous distance races on the Great Lakes. And one of the most famous ones is the Chicago to Mackinac race, or also known as the Chicago Mac. And this race here is basically starts down in Chicago at the Chicago Yacht Club and goes all the way up the lake to Mackinac City. 289 nautical miles, and this is coincidentally taking place on July 13th this year. So, you think you know them all by now, eh? Well, there's one other one, the Port Huron to Mackinac race. And that one goes the opposite way with pretty much the same destination. Starts down here at Port Huron, just across from Sarnia, and goes up Lake Huron to Mackinac City. About 204 nautical miles. Interestingly, taking place on July 13th, the same date that the race from Chicago is happening to Mackinac is taking place. So they're both going to converge at the same time. So what else is there? Well, there's one last one that I did in my research. And this one is called the Supermac. Starts in Chicago and it goes to Port Huron. And that one looks like this. Basically, from Chicago all the way up Lake Michigan, passing Mackinac City, and down to Port Huron. I believe it's also called the Bayview, the Bayfield to Mac race. I believe that's the other name. And it's about 500 nautical miles. It's not held annually. It's rather intermittently held. Looks like every 5 to 10 years this race takes place. So those are the Great Lakes races. And we're going to talk today about one that's specific to us, and that is the race to Kingston. And this is our 3rd year at it. So where did this all start? Well, it began with the birth of an idea, as I call it, and it was an inspiration to hold this race. We nickname it the R2K race. And it came from a collaboration between Chris Bovick of Mimico Cruising Club and Hugh Beaton of North Sails on creating a destination race on Lake Ontario, modeled after the famous Chicago Mac race. And this is where it got started. And you want to know what these guys look like? There's Chris Bovick on the left and Hugh Beaton on the right. Okay. Race to Kingston. Well, from where to where? Well, obviously it's somewhere to Kingston. So anyway, AKA the R2K race. Well, we're going to start at Mimico Cruising Club over at Humber Bay. And we're going to start this race on a Saturday morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's 145 nautical miles down the lake, roughly to basically Kingston. And along the way, they've got to be careful of the hazards, the shipping lanes, and there are some nasty shoals down there in the Kingston area. Some of the boats found this out. And the finish is at the Kingston Yacht Club. Now, this starts on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and depending on the weather conditions, you can get there within 24 hours for some people. If you've got strong wind, and if you don't have wind, it can take a lot longer. So we've had to put a cutoff of this race around 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Here's the idea is that we want to have the awards banquet on Monday around noon. So how do we do this? Well, we need to assemble a team. And for 2024, we have co-chairs, Joe Mallon and Chris Bobak. So obviously, this race involves 2 clubs, and we need more than just these 2 guys to do it. We need people at both ends of the event to make this all happen. Finding the talent, well, what can we do? Well, we went and tapped into the existing race committees and actually found a few people that were able to lend their skills and time to do it. We included the club managers because we had to do dinners, luncheons at both ends of the race. And we definitely needed their skills and scheduling and everything else. And we started off with monthly Zoom meetings in the beginning. As time went on, they became more frequently held, sometimes every week or 2, as we got closer to the race to make sure we tied up all the loose ends. And we started in November. This race is going to happen in August. We started planning on this in November, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So, assembling the team. There's the co-chairs, and here's some of the other players of the team. Wayne Parker, that's me. My wife, Marlene. Joe's wife, Kathy. John Ferrer, our club manager. And down in Kingston, we had George Jackson, Glenn Warner, who is the Commodore down there, Robert Wakelin, and their manager, Tom Wilson. So here's the first challenge, finding a weekend to do this. Why is that a challenge? Well, because there's a lot of racing on Lake Ontario all summer long. And what do I mean by a lot of race? Well, there's club opens, club regattas. There's examples, Tobico Yacht Club, this club right here, National Yacht Club, or Credit Yacht Club. They all have big racing events that pretty much tie up an entire weekend. There's J-Fest, that's another event. There's various lore events, such as the Lake Ontario 300, the Susan Hood, etc. There's a group of short-handed races, events we call Loshers, Lake Ontario Short-Handed Racing Series. There's the famous Amen series of races that used to start in August, but now they actually start earlier in the season, and then they kind of pick it up by August. And then on top of that, you've got your own club events that you got to kind of stick handle around. So some of the tasks that have to be completed. Determine the race requirements. Like, what kind of race is this? Well, if you looked at that map, that diagram I had of how to get down to Kingston from Mimico, you're pretty much way out there in the middle of the lake. You're not close to shore at all. So that defines it as an offshore race, not an onshore race. Racing on a weekday night, club racing on a weekday night is pretty much considered onshore racing simply because you're close to shore. So you got to write some key documentation to do this. So other things we had to do, we had to schedule with the club managers, the dinner parties, etc. at Mimico. We had to reserve slips at Confederation Basin in Kingston because the Kingston Yacht Club is a relatively small club and has a limited number of slips for visiting boats at any time. And this was another challenge, finding a weekend that worked down there that didn't have another event that was tying up the weekend that we might want. So that was another challenge. Another one, negotiating a room deal with a local Kingston hotel near the Confederation Basin area, because these guys are gonna be pretty burned out after a day or two of racing down the lake. And they probably like a proper bed to sleep in overnight and get recharged. And lastly, scheduling the awards ceremony, luncheon, and following party at Kingston for the Monday. So those are kind of the high points of what we had planned. Requirements of an offshore race. All right. So because it's offshore, boats have to conform to World Sailing Offshore Special Requirements Category 3. AKA OSR Cat 3 is the acronym for it. Now, along with World Sailing, this also includes prescriptions from both Sail Canada and the ARC 2K race. What do I mean by prescriptions? They can be additional requirements, or we can reduce the requirements of World Sailing. Kind of what we wanted, what we do. This is a very comprehensive document, 16 pages in length, or at least our version is, and it comes with an accompanying checklist to make sure you're good. Why is this document important? Well, the purpose of this document is to establish uniform minimum equipment, accommodation, training standards for monohull and multi-hull boats racing offshore. So what do I mean by that? Minimum equipment requirements. Well, if you think about it, if you could reduce some of the equipment on board, you could lighten the boat up. You're going offshore with a crew. If we don't have a standard set, people could do things to a boat that basically makes it somewhat unsafe in the event of an emergency. So we don't let you take out things like the bunks. We don't let you take out things like cooking facilities and head and things like that. So the bottom line is it basically establishes a standard. It talks about things like lifelines and specifications around that. Talks about hatch size. Now, all of these requirements would conform to ABYC standards, current standards. But the bottom line is we don't want people modifying their boats in a manner that would make them unsafe to their crews in the event of adverse conditions. So that's why you have to have that. There's the front page of that document, as I mentioned. It's a World Sailing document with some Sail Canada additions, and also our own slant on things too for 2024. First version of it that we issued on January 18th. Okay, key components of the OSR document. I've already touched upon some of them, but it's got some other things too. Responsibilities of the person in charge, or the skipper. The structural features, stability requirements, and the fixed equipment that should be on the boat. I touched upon that already. It mandates certain portable equipment. It mandates personal and safety equipment. It even mandates, this I thought was very interesting, was emergency drinking water requirement per person. Very important. It talks about emergency grab bags with various equipment that has to be put in those bags. So in the event of abandoning the boat, you have a grab bag with a watertight flashlight, a portable VHF radio, things of that nature. In addition to the equipment, it talks about special training requirements. For example, the overboard recovery drill. This should be practiced every year by the crew and signed off as being done. They recommend that at least 2 of your crew be qualified in first aid training. They should know what to do in the event of hypothermia. They should know how to perform CPR and basic first aid. This last one, I got it highlighted in red because this one's really new for 2024. And that is the offshore sea survival training. This one here is based on a course. Sail Canada offers both a 1 and 2 day course that trains you in this. And this course has been around for several years. A number of people have taken it already. This year, it's being mandated. We are mandating it to be 15% of the crew for 2024. Sail Canada is mandating 30%. So here's an example of our prescription basically reducing theirs. But that's it. So this is one of the challenges. This is a training course, 1 or 2 day course. It's lost my train of thought there, but 1 or 2 day course. Oh, you take the course, you're qualified for 5 years. So it's very much like a first aid course. You're qualified for so many years after you take it. And when your time runs out, you have to take it again. Okay, another key document, the notice of race document. And this is a document that we're probably more familiar with because even club racing on a weekday night has a notice of race document. And it's really very similar to on a distance race, but there's probably more detail in it. Key components of that document, the rules of the race in general. What rules are we highlighting? Communication details and requirements. For example, VHF, what channels are we going to broadcast information over? Eligibility and entry requirements for the boat. Well, in our case, it's going to be a perf race. So the bottom line is you have to have a perf certificate. It has to be valid, and it has to be 180 or lower. Crew limitations and requirements, the schedule for the race, and the fact that we could insist on an equipment inspection of your boat. Again, another requirement of this race. Other things in that document, of course, the course, how the race is going to be scored. We're going to score it, it's a perf race, we're going to score it with perf. We're scoring it with the perf alternate formula. Not the Wednesday night formula. This is a different formula that is used for distance racing over a number of days. There's a statement about risk because we all know there are hazards involved with sailboat racing, and people need to be aware of the fact that it is a risk that you're taking in doing this. Minimum insurance requirements, other details about the prizes that will be awarded, various checklists which need to be signed off, and also the cutoff dates for this document here and for the race. Other documents we have to create, because there's a lot of them. We have a boat and person in charge waiver. We have a crew waiver. Another one here, sailing instructions. We're all familiar with that, even on weekday night racing. We have to have an alternative penalty form. If you follow somebody out there, what did you do to exonerate yourself? You need to have the details of that all listed. Emergency contacts form, plain and simple, it's an offshore race. Reduced visibility racing rules, again, another world sailing document. And we put that in there as well. The event program, which is on the tables here. You get if you look at that, it gives us our 3-day event or 4-day event calendar, what's happening on that weekend. And we even threw in the dinner menu because we want to entice people to come up and do this. So we put out a really good dinner on Friday night. Where does all this documentation go? Well, it's not just on your club website. It goes on to a website or a data repository known as yacht scoring. And this is accessible by anybody. You can go to yachtscoring.com. It'll ask you what race you're interested in. Type in the name of the race and it'll give you umpteen years of information about those races. You can drill down and open documents. It's wide open to anybody. So you don't have to register to see this stuff. You read this stuff before you even consider registering. And actually, I'll go back one slide there. There is a reason why we did the offshore special requirements document and the notice of race document. We did those first. And that's why I was very adamant about going into a lot of detail, Because people need to read those documents to determine if they're gonna enter the race. They need to know what's required. So we did that, and we did this all prior to the boat show because we want to launch registration at boat show time. We wanted enough information out there and available so that people could make an informed decision about whether or not they were going to enter the race. Okay, promotion. Well, it's everywhere, right? There's the logo for our race. Start early because we want to launch this race at the boat show. We wanted to open registration the day the boat show began. Get your brand out everywhere, including here today. Flyers, post flyers at all neighboring clubs. Get other clubs to come in there too. And the flyers are on the table as well. Regalia, shirts, hats. Backstay flags. There's a backstay flag over there. I'll show you in a future slide as well for the people online. Pop-up posters. Right beside me. And the most important thing, talk it up anywhere you can. Because you can talk to one group, they tell somebody else, that spurs interest. We get more and more people entering the race. Backstay flags. There's our backstay flag from 2023. One of our sponsors who paid for those flags, Accessibilities, gets his name on the flag. Racing pop-up posters, as we call them. This was one that we brought out after last year's race. Actually, is my personal favorite. I like this guy. I like this poster most, and features quite a bit of action there with the two Bobbitt boys there at the helm of Blast. Here's the pop-up poster that we had prior to the race last season, with a bit of detail on it. Sponsors, partners, very important. Number one, we have different levels of sponsorship. Our key sponsor this year is Gosling's Rum of Bermuda. And Goslings are providing quite a bit of product for this event. And they become our premier sponsor. North Sales, another sponsor. Again, they provided product as well. And I'm not talking about sales, they provided the awards flags. Graydale Construction, this is a construction company that's based in Mimico. They're actually on Royal York Road. Sullivan and Son, this is a construction company down in Kingston. These vendors provided us with some cash. Stonehook, we had Ross Knoll here a couple of weeks ago talking about the history of Stonehookers in Port Credit, and this is his brewery. He provided some product for our event. Gallagher Skipper's Plan, another sponsor. Accessibilities, the people that paid for the backstay flags. Bogue Marine, they're going to be providing some stuff to raffle off for this year's race. Indy Marine, another marine supplier, similar to Fogue, what they're providing. Yacht Solutions, again, another one. Spearhead Brewery. Spearhead is a craft brewery down in the Kingston area, and they'll be providing product at the other end of the race. One of the racers we've got racing with us, Will French. He races with Mimico on Wednesday nights, and he sponsored us and to get his name front and center here as well. And last, Parker Media, they provided services to us. They helped us a lot with some of the graphics work on this race. and on some of our, on our promotional materials. So this is how how it all works. The awards. Okay, well, you gotta have some prizes to hand out. When we started this, we had absolutely nothing. We had this idea of a race, but we had nothing to give away. So we had to find some trophies. So to buy trophies outright is pretty expensive. So we were fortunate. We drummed up some old trophies. We asked members who, if they had any trophies at home, that they were willing to contribute to this. And we basically rebranded them. We got a couple of lovely half balls here as well that are service trophies too. And we learned a valuable lesson with handing out awards like this. Don't let them out of your sight. You know, you give someone an award after they've won a division or something like that, and they think it's wonderful, and they take it back to their table, and then they disappear with it. And you spend the better part of next year trying to get them to give it back to you so you can award it the following year. So we learned a lesson. The new policy is, if you win an award, you come up, you accept the award, you take it back to your table, you take as many pictures as you want with your crew surrounding the award, and you give it back afterwards. Because if you don't, we just have a terrible time tracking this stuff down. So there we go. Award flags. Well, these are our award flags. It's here. It's right there. It's right there. Yeah. These are lovely award flags. These are embroidered flags provided to us by North Sales. These are really lovely. So, as the race day approaches, well, there's still lots to do, and there's a lot of follow-up. So, issue the remaining documentation, and that would be the sailing instructions. And we have to figure out splits because it's not going to be one division. Last year we had 6 divisions. Depending on who enters, you figure out what boats fit into what division. Verify registrations and payments. Now we ask people when they register to pay at the time of registration, but a lot of them register and we're still chasing them for money. So that's a challenge. Chasing down the documentation. Well, there's a number of things. We ask people to provide us a crew list, a crew overboard recovery drill certificate, and this year is the offshore personal survival course certificate. And again, these are documents that are part of what's required to qualify to enter this race. So there's quite a bit of chasing things down. Lastly, verify all perf values and validity. A lot of people register. They're not really sure about their perf, or they remember what their perf was 4 years ago. And so it's a case of going in, making sure they got a valid perf certificate and verifying the value they gave us. And a lot of them were out by, you know, a few seconds per nautical mile, etc. So we had to fix all of that. As I mentioned, perf. Some boats had never raced before and required a perf certificate. So we had to help them get that. We had to get them to measure sails. We had to get them set up with perf certificates. There's a lot of these people that are traditional cruisers that don't race on a weekday night. And we had to go through the motions of getting their boats measured, etc. One boat, this was interesting. Joe and I had fun with this one, didn't we? Yeah. One boat was from out of province. It turned out one of the guys that was entered, he was from here. He was going to race his boat. And then his buddy down in Quebec says, well, why don't we use my boat? And this guy's down, I think he was down at Saguenay, somewhere quite a ways down in Quebec along the St. Lawrence. Anyway, he said, this is the kind of boat it is. It's a Seascape 27. Joe and I went into the perf database. It didn't exist, which means it had never been rated by Perf Lake, Ontario. So we only had within a couple of weeks of when the race was going to start here. So we had to appeal to our perf executive to help us out here, and they did. They were great. We got the district chiefs, and they put their heads together and came up with an initial rating for this boat. So that was really pretty good. Okay. We're down to the day before the race, registration day. And We did in-person registration, and here's the personal touch. And many of the people are here today. And this was our team. Now, you're gonna have an event like this, you gotta have a dinner and you gotta have a party to kick it off. So 300 plus people. The biggest event Mimico has ever done. In fact, it was so big, we couldn't do it inside. We had to rent a tent to do it outside. And I'll say this has become the standard now for even our awards banquet, which we hold in mid-October. We do it outside in a tent, and it works great. The awards banquet, we were 200 plus last year. This event here was 300 plus people. And what we did was we invited the entire club to dine and party with the racers. So it really became a big event. And we did all of this, dinner and 2 complimentary drinks for under $30. Here's what it looked like from the balcony above at Mimico Cruising Club. Along with the event tent, we had a couple of vendors over here, and we had a number of our sponsors that came out and set up booths, etc., that complemented the event quite nicely. We had our premier sponsor, Goslings, and their famous dark and stormy drink made from rum and their own ginger beer. And for those of you who are here, you've got a coaster on your table that's got the formula for the dark and stormy right on the back. In addition, our other supplier here of libation was Stonehooker Breweries, and they provided some complimentary beer as well. That was the other complimentary drink at this event. And here's what it looked like with 300 plus people. It's a little hard to do table service. So it was a grand buffet here with chafing dishes and etc. We had some of our sponsors appeared, were able to join us. This lady here is Emily Gosling. She is 8th generation owner of the business. This Gosling's Rum is based in Bermuda, and the gentleman beside her was her marketing manager who came up from Bermuda for this event. Emily lives in Vancouver. We had a traditional Burgee exchange. On the left, we've got Glenn Warner, who is the Commodore of Kingston Yacht Club, and on the right, in the center rather, we've got Roman Maisley, who is the Commodore of Mimico Cruising Club. So there we have the traditional Burgee exchange between Commodores. In addition, we had Ross Knoll, here he is again, making a little promotional pitch there as well at this event. Other folks here, past co-chair John O'Dwyer on the left, and current co-chair this year, Joan Allen on the right. This is an interesting shot. This is one of our racers, Zoltan, on the left there, and he has a boat called O2. And Zoltan has a really interesting way of identifying crew. So I thought that was a good one. I had to say, put that picture in. Okay. After dinner, mandatory skippers meeting and weather briefing. This took place upstairs in Mimico's clubhouse, and we pretty much restricted it to the skippers. We allowed some of the crew in as well, but we have a limit as to capacity up there. So yours truly giving the lowdown on how we're going to start this race the next morning. So I'll point one other thing out here before I go any further. You notice all those pictures at the party and dinner, etc. The sun was shining. it was very nice that afternoon. We've got Ron Benacki here, marine meteorologist, giving us the weather briefing. We've had Ron both years. The first year he predicted it would be a no wind event, and he was right on the money. In the second year, he said we were going to get everything under the sun, and I think he was right on the money there too. There was wind, there were gusts, there were storms, everything the second year. This is an interesting shot here. This is lake temperature. This is early August. And this is, at the time, this was the highest temperature Lake Ontario has ever been at that time of the season. So Ron says to me, if you don't think global warming's happening, it is. Remember that sunshine you saw a few slides back there? That was Saturday morning. And it was storms all around us, on and off rain. That's how the start of the race went. There's a couple of our crew on our club boat doing the flags, Shelley and Donna, and Marlene there on the radio, broadcasting information at the start. And there's a number of boats here waiting for their start to come up. We had 6 divisions, 4 starts, and some of these are basically in queue, waiting to come into start sequence. Still pretty gray looking. These are boats approaching the start line. And this is after we got them all started. This was a shot of them heading up the course, up to the windward mark. They're going to go around the windward mark and head down to Kingston after that. You can see the sky's lightening up here, which was kind of encouraging to us. So I told you about Ron Benacki giving us a no wind forecast in 2022 and an anything goes forecast in 2023. So this was 2022. This was what it looked like out there. 2023, same boat. Different, same boat, probably the same crew or some of the same crew, a little bit more adventurous. Here we got the other co-chair, Chris Bobick, with his son. They're out there. This is 2023. Looking like they're doing pretty good. So this one here, this is a video that was taken by Chris. One of his sons is at the helm. And this is what it was like on the Saturday afternoon, 2023.
Come on. And back stay on. Zoomed in. Front coming through. Oh, pull behind us wiped out. Don't look. How are we doing now? Oh yeah. Wiped out. Okay. Going down. That's it. 9-6. Old front coming through. Oh yeah. You're eating it up, eh? Is it? It's rocketing. 23 knots. These are all the middles. Oh, big one right here.
Okay. So it didn't stop there. There was entertainment. That was great, that video. Riding the gusts out there on that Saturday afternoon, that looked great. Saturday night, some of the people out there got treated to a meteor shower. And this isn't a picture, this isn't a real picture. I got this off the web. But at the time, it was quite a spectacular meteor shower. And depending on where you were on the lake, it was either a lot of cloud cover around you, you didn't see it. People that were maybe a little further back, they had clear sky, they got quite a good view of it. Sunday morning, this was a shot taken in 2022. And this is sunrise on Sunday morning. And this was on board a boat called See Ya. So the finish line at Kingston Yacht Club. And the flagpole is just to the left of those people, and it didn't get caught in this picture. However, the finish was between the flagpole and that mark that's in the water. Kingston Yacht Club, club with a lot of history, 1896 established. So we got a club here that is 128 years old. Pretty cool. There's another shot of Kingston Yacht Club, the lake in the background. This is actually very close to downtown Kingston. Monday race awards luncheon and party. Well, the party started back up on Monday, later in Monday around 11 o'clock. Gosling's Rum was there again, and Spearhead Breweries. And here's the start of our awards banquet here. Chris and myself, we were co-chairs last year, 2023. And here's some of the awards. This is one of the first place teams. So a flag, a trophy, and a bottle of rum. Nothing wrong with that. This was the Afterburn team. These guys got line honors. They were the fastest boat to complete the course. But they've got one heck of a perf rating. They're -18. So when you do the scoring, they finished a little bit down the pipe. This is some of the crowd upstairs at that luncheon. And here's another one of our winners. This is that sunrise picture was taken by that lady in the middle, Kara Johnson. Again, their award. And this is this boat here. This is Notorious, the Notorious team. They finished overall. They were the fastest boat in the race. When we did an overall, we did a division scoring, and we did an overall score. And these guys came across with the overall trophy as well. And the party continued after the luncheon, went most of the rest of the day. Good fun. So some of the stats here. Race to Kingston summary. 31 boats started in 6 divisions or starts. 26 boats finished. One had a medical emergency. They went past Coburg, had a problem with an individual on board, and they had to turn around and get back to Coburg very quickly. This person was taken off the boat and taken to a hospital. So not related to anything that happened out there. It was just something that happened to this individual while he was on board. There was one other more minor medical emergency, an injury that took place. These were pretty windy conditions at times, and there was an injury on board, and they just plain retired. And then there were 3 other retirements just because of broken equipment and the race, the wind conditions being just too much for them. First boat to finish, as I mentioned, was Afterburn. So Sherry, you asked how long does it take to get down there? So this boat got down there. This was the fastest boat, 19 hours, 16 minutes and 49 seconds. So the final boat to finish was a boat called Bow Movement. He took about 30 hours, 45 minutes and 13 seconds to complete. He finished a little after 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. And the boats we have boats from the following clubs participate: MCC in Mimico and Kingston. Also, we had boats from Prince Edward County. We had boats from Lakeshore, Oakville Yacht Squadron, Ashbridges Bay Yacht Club, Port Credit Yacht Club, Royal Canadian Yacht Club, this club here, National, Whitby Yacht Club, and Collins Bay Yacht Club. So from here, we can go to questions.
Well, you had multiple, excuse me, yacht. While you had multiple yacht clubs, how many boats were from Kingston area and how many were from Toronto area? Roughly.
The bulk, of course, of boats were from the Toronto area. I think we had about 3 boats from Kingston. One from Collins Bay, which is close to Kingston as well. Prince Edward, 1 boat from Prince Edward. The rest of them the bulk were from Toronto. I would say, and Mimico had the majority of the boats. We talked this race up an awful lot of. Yeah. Anything else?
National Yacht Club has a series of sailors' nights, Wednesday nights, and I don't know if they have any vacancies in their schedule, but you might talk to them about presenting this to see if you can emphasize.
Okay, thanks, Ron. That's great. That's great. And that's, yeah, and I've got another.
Just the committee.
Nope.
Arrange that.
The question was, did the committee arrange the meteor shower? Unfortunately not. That was a bonus. Thanks, John. He must have. Okay. Sally.
You can repeat my question. Will Mimico be hosting the offshore sail training birthday?
We actually did host one.
Can you repeat my question?
Okay, sorry. Will Mimico be hosting an offshore sea survival course? And we did so back in January. And there are other courses coming up and available as we get through the spring. Graham?
Yeah, actually. The courses are put on by Ontario Sailing and hosted at the various clubs. So they've had about 10 courses across the GTA in 2024.
Thank you. Okay, any,
We have a question from Seamus.
go ahead, Seamus.
You need to unmute yourself.
My apology, talking to myself again. Good afternoon, Wayne and fellow members and guests. I am very impressed with your presentation, and amazing that all these people could get together and contribute their skills and so forth. And of course, when you get people together, there's always a range of personalities. And I got the impression that MCC and KYC are very pleasant places to be, both in planning and post-planning activities like parties and so forth. But all the reminded me of particularly the sailing races and the qualification. There's sort of a parallel with the racehorsing industry, like back in the British Isles when we were connected with racing. Before we used starting gates, they still use them in the national hunt, starting behind the tape, and it can be a job getting all the horses and jockeys in line. And I noticed that's a challenge in this event as well, although you were blessed with good weather. And the other thing was that I had absolutely no idea that there was so much involved in planning and organizing and implementing, and all the considerations like health and safety, insurance, etc. That this went on from November to July. And I'm very impressed, and I agree with the suggestion that somebody made. Your presentation would be very welcome, I'm sure, in other sailing clubs anywhere in this vicinity. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks, Seamus. he's right. There is quite a bit of work involved in getting this together.
You could go after Seamus for that trophy.
Actually, I can give you that trophy if you want, but it was won by a late granduncle in County Londonderry back in the late 1800s for his prize bull, which actually later killed him.
Oh, oh.
Get that one.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions, comments, etc.? I'll tell you what, we got a few minutes here.
I think pretty close to.
Do you wanna,
No, I think
you wanna wrap it here?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, can I go back to the one slide after this?
just a minute. I can.
Okay,
No,
just go,
no, I just have to.
Yeah. Can you advance it? Just advance it to the next slide, Cram, that's great. Okay, this is the very last slide I just wanted to have here. And that is just our poster for 2024. And just,
Great.
it's gonna take place on August 17th. So tell your friends. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Lane, and we really enjoyed that. There's a lot of moving pieces to an operation like that, that's for sure. And you guys did a great job. I saw a lot of it firsthand, so that was great. Would you accept this pin from the Shellbacks for giving us this wonderful presentation? And we thank you very much. Everybody, I think I can speak for everybody. We all enjoyed it very, very much. Not that I'm biased or anything. Anyway, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Just a short note, what's up and coming? Next week, we're in person and on Zoom. And it's March 6th, a life course change at 50 with Thomas Ullinger. I hope I said that right. After taking early retirement for many years in international construction, Thomas turned to life at sea. He joined the Sea Cadets, earned a scholarship from NOAC, and proceeded to explore the world on cruise ships, rather than spend time on Lakers, as many cadets did. In the process, he worked his way through mate, first mate, navigation officer, chief mate, and captain. These experiences led him to running the Center for Marine Training and Research for Georgian College. And today, again in retirement on Manitoulin Island, he continues sharing his knowledge on the 348 Manitoulin NCSCC. March 13th, we will be on Zoom only. It will cover part-time explorer brings us the wreck of the SS Atlantic in Halifax, Nova Scotia, 1873. The SS Atlantic, that was a trick to see if anyone was paying attention. The SS Atlantic was a transatlantic ocean liner of the White Star Line that operated between Liverpool and New York City. During the ship's 19th voyage on 1st of April, 1873, she struck rocks and sank off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada, killing at least 535 people. It remains the deadliest civilian maritime disaster in the North Atlantic Ocean until the sinking of SS La Bourgogne on 2nd of July, 1898, and the greatest disaster for the White Star Line prior to the loss of Titanic in April 1912. And with that, we'll go to Pipes Out.